Welcome back to Comic Book History, Episode 4. Now, originally this one I was going to plan on doing the history of the Transformers comics. I decided to postpone it the next episode because I figured, though, why not do an episode to cheer up my friend Edgar, who basically thinks that, well, he believes that Brian Michael Bendis killed off Tony Stark at the end of Civil War. He's planning to kill him off at the end of Civil War too. So, why not recap something he may have already know, or he may enjoy this. He may not. It's up to him. He, of course, is a big Iron Man fan. I am a fan of Iron Man, but not as big as he is. To the point where one of his one of the things on his cover artwork is the current Iron Man suit. I am not freaking kidding about that. If you look at his channel, he basically has Iron Man as part of his logo. As a matter of fact, it's pointed out several times that at several points his profile picture has been whatever the Iron Man suit tends to be. Okay. Now, I should point out that Iron Man has four guys who are credited creating the character of Iron Man / Tony Stark. These guys are Stan Lee, his brother Larry Liebert, Jack the King Kirby, and Don Heck. Don Heck and Jack Kirby are just rotating artists between two of them. Now, when he made his debut appearance, in Tales of Suspense number 39. Now, basically, it's his origin story, and the origin story has mostly been intact over the years. The only thing that's changed when it comes to his origin story is the location. They keep changing location. In the original origin story, I believe it was Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to make sure of that. Let's see. I think it's it's Vietnam. I mean, first it's Vietnam for basically the 60s, and it was updated in the 80s to China, and then in 2000 it was updated to Afghanistan. But during the course of Tales of Suspense, which he was in the book for exactly like 61 issues, a little here, he basically. Now, during this period of time, you have the debut appearance of a lot of his well-known supervillains. Heck, this is book also first appearance of Pepper Potts, Happy Hogan, Stark Industries, which has gone under many different renames over there. Currently, I think it's known as Stark International. Though, I will look for the current fate of the book soon. But, excuse me. After the book ended, after Tales of Suspense ended at issue 99, and the book numbering was continued as Captain America, I will get to Captain America in an episode. Now, Stan Lee would not be the regular writer of the book. Shoot, thing just disappeared on me. Yeah. The book went through a few different writers per se, but Don Heck would be pretty much the regular artist for pretty much the book of Iron Man from time. Come on. Yeah, my computer's acting weird on me. I don't know why it is. But the book itself has gone. When the book ended, it was continued as it was. Well, the Iron Man was moved to a one-shot split book, even though the book was called Iron Man and Submariner, even though it wasn't a team-up book. Basically, it's implied as a team-up book, but actually not. The book itself is simply sort of a backdoor pilot to the Iron Man ongoing series. Yes. Now, who else made their debut in it? In the page of Tales of Suspense before I move on? I mean, not only the manager, but also several villains. People like the Blizzard. Oh, there's a bunch of Iron Man villains who basically made their debut in the pages of Iron Man. It's either in the Iron Man comic book or in Tales of Suspense. The only one that did not, that is an Iron Man villain, is Fing Fang Foom. He made his debut in Tales in Journey to Mission Number 62. That's where he made his debut appearance. He's actually one of two known ones who did not make a debut in like certain comic books. Now, of course, about 2 years after his debut, at least 3 years after his debut appearance, he became founding member of the Avengers, which he still remains this very day. His book was launched a little over a few years after, then once his book was launched, it had this great cover, basically just Iron Man on the cover, and had this big logo. And a few of these books like this, like Captain Mark 100 had this. Spider-Man 1, basically a lot of the comic books in the mid-60s basically had this big logo on big premiere issue. Yeah. Okay, now it's back. Here we go. Alright. Now, of course, the armor, and we'll get to the armor soon. Well, this is about the comic book. Well, the armor has many different looks over the years. Look at Wikipedia. It simply has this cover of it. The cover art is done by Gene Colan, who has since passed away, and Mike Esposito. Now, the known writers who did this volume, who did the first volume of the series, are Archie Goodwin, Dave Michelini, John Byrne, Lynn Kaminsky, Terry Calvin, and Denny O'Neil. Even though it's not listed here, but Denny O'Neil had one of the most high-profile runs in the book, along with Dave Michelini, which for a lot of people, Dave Michelini is one of the most definitive Iron Man writers in the history of the Iron Man character. Okay, yes, the book was launched in 1968, exactly just by sheer coincidence. A little over 6 years after his debut appearance. That's when the book was launched. And the book continues this very day despite its various relaunches. And of course the book has had debuts of various different characters. I mean, you have a little bit minor characters here and there. I mean, one of the most biggest villains to make a debut in the Iron Man comic is the Ironmonger, but he'd make his debut in the 80s. But, yeah. You have a lot of Iron Man villains who showed up in the pages of the Iron Man title. Basically, that was the whole point. Now, the Iron Man title is basically his only title. He's had a few spin-off miniseries and a couple spin-off ongoing series, but none has been high-profile as the main book. Unlike Spider-Man, who's a franchise of books, Iron Man has not technically had that. No, he hasn't. Yeah. Now here are the writers for Iron Man. Stan Lee, who did the Iron Man stories for most of the run for Tales of Suspense issues 39 and 98. Larry Lieber did 39, 41, 45, 47, 51, 53, 58. You also had Archie Goodwin, Mimi Gold, Alan Brodsky, the awesome Jerry Conway, Robert Kanigher, Roy Thomas, Gary Frederick, Mike Fedrick, Jim Starlin, Steve Gerber, Leen Wein, Robert Schaefer, Bill Mantlo, Peter Gaz, Ralph Manchlow, Bob Harris, Evan Schuck, Kerry Bork, and Rob Tokar. They did one of the annuals. Of course, Dave Michelini, Bob Layton, who was his co-plotter for a lot of. He was also the artist of the book. Alan Kupperberg, Denny O'Neil, Roger Canons, Dennis Malone, Danny Fogarth, Howard Minky, the late Dwayne McDuffie, Glenn Hardin, Vim Caesar, Ron Perez, John Byrne, Lynn Kaminsky, Terry Kavanagh, Scott Liddell, Jim Lee, Jeff Loeb, James Robinson, Kurt Busiek, Joe Casey, Joe Quesada, Chuck Dixon, Frank Turry, Mike Grell, Rob Laws, John Jackson Miller, Mark Rice, Warren Ellis, Daniel Cuniff, Charles Cuniff, Christos N. Gage, Stuart Moore, Matt Fraction, who had one of the longest runs in years, Karen Gillian, Tom Taylor, and the currently Brian Michael Bendis. Yeah, it is a long list of writers. But sometimes these writers would not stay in the book for too long. Only very few actually did more than just a few issues. And those were Lee, Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, Archie Goodwin, Jerry Conway, Mike Frederick, Bill Mantlo, Dave Michelini, Bob Layton, Danny O'Neill, Danny Frederick, Lee Komatsky, Terry Kavanaugh. Let's see who else. Joe Quesada did more than a few issues. Frank Terry. Basically, a lot of these runs basically. Now, Volume 1 had the had the highest number of issues, but it lasted 332 issues for which we launched number 1, and it managed to have about. Let's see, how many annuals did it have? It has it on here. It managed to have 15 annuals published before it was relaunched number 1. It was relaunched number 1 in September of 1996. And of course, when there was a brief hiatus for like 1 month, relaunched 2 months later as Iron Man Volume 2, which Fred Edgar is going through reviews that right now. He's almost done with it. That lasted for 13 issues, and it was relaunched like a little over a year, and then once again, it basically took another hiatus, this time for about 2 months. Relaunches Iron Man Volume 3, where this one lasted for 89 issues, until Avengers Assembled, where it was relaunched again to relaunch against Iron Man, which is the 4th volume for the series. That lasted for 35 issues, but when it goes back to volume numbering, the last 3 issues don't count as part of the numbering because they were basically backdoor pilot issues to the War Machine ongoing series, which I'll get to War Machine soon. Then you have, which is considered to be the 5th volume for the series, Invincible Iron Man, Volume 1, which is kind of considered to be the 5th volume of the series. This one lasted for 33 issues for being renumbered to issue 500, and then they hit the restart button again after issue 527. And then you have, of course, Volume 3 had a few annuals. 4 had 1 annual. 5, which is Invincible Iron Man, that had 1 annual. 5, which was 2 volumes before this current one. That one had 1 annual. Now, the thing with Iron Man Volume 5, even though it's actually Volume 6, this one's a bit controversial because it's the Karen Gillan volume. Simply because it started out pretty okay until the Secret Origin of Tony Stark. It was good up until that final issue when they revealed that Tony Stark was in fact adopted. That really ticked a lot of people off. And of course, the Iron Man sales, probably at that point, because I don't know what the sales were at that point, but they probably dropped very heavily after that 1 issue. Then, of course, you have stuff like Iron Metropolitan, which was a pretty decent story arc, and of course, The Rings of Mandarin, which was awful. Yeah. But some of these arcs tend to be really interesting. Like, during that Fraction run, really interesting stories, like The Seven Sins, the World's Most Wanted arc, Ghost in the Machine. There's the Stark Reliant arc. The Matt Fraction run, prior to Gillian taking over the book, had a lot of high-profile stories and a lot of memorable stories. Same thing with the previous volume, the one that was launched in 2004, when I started reading comic books. Actually, in 2005. This one also had a lot of high-profile stories, like the Extremis story, which was basically the origin backstory was used for Iron Man 1, and the actual story itself was used for Iron Man 3. Though I should point out that the character Muller and Adrian Killian were 2 separate characters in the story, and then pretty much the one they used in the movie is they just brought the 2 characters together. Now, my friend Edgar and I can agree, Volume 4 was an awesome run. Same thing, I'm not sure how he feels about that Fractions run, especially with the change of artwork here and there, but there was also some good stories, like even when it became 500, there was like stuff with Dr. Octopus, There was the Fear Itself tie-in, which I thought was really good, despite the fact Fear Itself being complete garbage. But the tie-ins were really good. Then you have stuff dealing with the Aftermath, which is kind of like people revealing that he was actually drunk during Fear Itself, which lets the whole thing with the Extremis stuff, which still plays a factor in the Iron Man books. They led pretty much after Fear Itself led to this year-long storyline where it's just Iron Man versus the Mandarin, and it's like Matt Fraction was a huge Iron Man fan. He threw in like almost every single Iron Man villain that there was in this particular storyline, which lasted up until the book's relaunch in 2012, and then led to Kieron Gillian's run. After Gillian left the book, it's like the book was put on hiatus, and then you had the Original Sin tie-in, which I kind of agree with Edgar on this one, that revealing that Tony Stark was responsible for the creation of the Hulk, that was a dumb idea for Gillian to do. And then Marvel's like, gotta be desperate. It's like, okay, we'll take Gillian off the book. We'll bring in a new writer, Tom Taylor, who is a popular writer over DC. Let's bring him in to do Iron Man. And he did Superior Iron Man. Now, initially, like, okay, I thought maybe they're going to replace him with his brother that they had revealed during the origin of Tony Stark, but no. Here's something neat with Tom Taylor, what he did during his run. His brother, Arnold Stark, nowhere to be seen. There's no reference to him at all. It's like no one's brought up the fact, what the heck happened to the character? It's like he's completely disappeared. And this was a guy who was basically confined to a bed for years. And then he built his own Iron Man armor. Yeah, it's actually quite bizarre. But yeah, and he apparently had some medical problems. But yeah. Excuse me. Then all of a sudden Secret Wars hit, and the story was never officially concluded. It's like, oh, Pepper Potts decided out that Tony Stark is evil. Okay. And then all of a sudden after Secret Wars, Tony Stark is back to normal, because during Access he got changed to bad, and somehow he stayed as bad after Access, but has turned back to good. Still had not been explained to this very day. But the book was relaunched once again for its 7th volume of the series, even though it's Iron Man Volume 2, but technically it's a 7th volume of Iron Man, where it lasted 13 issues. And it was really good. Yeah, both Edgar and I can agree. This is actually one run. I mean, Bendis basically continued the awesomeness of saving the Iron Man title, making it good again. Basically getting rid of clean up all the stench that Kieron Gillian left in the book when he did the book. He basically, it's like Tom Taylor's job was to save the Iron Man title from being canceled with Superior Iron Man. He relaunched it, and he did something Dan Slott could not do. He did something fancy. Like, Superior Iron Man was better than Superior Spider-Man in one particular way. The supporting characters were not idiots. They actually knew he was evil all along. They knew that. Heck, the first 4 issues had Daredevil guest starring, which I thought was a really big stroke of genius, which kind of tied into Mark Waid's run of Daredevil, what's happening at that point, where Daredevil was actually in San Francisco again because the book was set in San Francisco. Yeah, and the book had great covers. The Superior book. Yeah, great covers, great artwork. Yeah. Then, of course, afterwards, you get back to when he, of course, in his new armor. It was a pretty good book, and of course, they launched. Now, originally, it was stated that this book was going to be Iron Man looking for his biological parents. That never happened. And then came an announcement that they were going to do an International Iron Man, which was a good book. I mean, yeah, if you read the book, and I'm sure Edgar agreed with me on this, it kind of felt like Brian Michael Bendis, who had been writing Iron Man for years in the pages of New Avengers and Avengers, I kind of felt as though he didn't like what Kieron Gillian did, but he had to do it because, well, Kieron Gillian set it up, so he had to pay it off. I don't know if Edgar agreed this week on this, but I think Brian Michael Bendis did not want to do the story at all. He just wanted to write good Iron Man stories. He didn't want to deal with the whole Iron Man being adopted or him basically revealing that him looking for his parents, stuff like that. But it's like, okay, it's kind of like Brian Michael Bendis did not want to do the story. He just wanted to tell good Iron Man stories. That's what he wanted to do. When you read the Events of Iron Man title, and International Iron Man, that's what you're reading. Even though that that the whole thing with and of course they brought in Mike Deodato to do the artwork for that series. Not Mike Deodato. He actually took over International Iron Man after Dave Marquez left after the first 5 issues. Now, I don't hate Mike Deodato's artwork like everyone else does, who doesn't like the fact that Iron Man's gotten darker, but you can still see what the heck is going on. I mean, I don't get him and Alex Maleev. I don't get the hate for their artwork. And I know for a fact Greg Land gets all the hate that he has deserved over the years, but Mike Deodato and Alex Maleev does not deserve the hate that they've gotten recently over the International Iron Man book. I mean, I've read International Iron Man. I've read the book. It's good. And I like the artwork. I don't get what people's problem with Alex Maleev's artwork is. Oh, Iron Man can't be dark? Really? Last time I checked, not every single artist has drawn Iron Man to be in the light. Not everyone has done that at all. Okay? Now, I'm probably with a lot of people who basically, that the Bendis could have retconned what Kieron Gillen did. Because the whole adoption thing was really stupid to begin with. But instead of doing the retcon, Bendis had no choice but to basically do it. My guess is he probably, and this is, I'm not sure if this is true or not. My guess is Bendis basically had to expand upon the dumb retcon of Tony Stark being adopted and looking for his parents, his biological parent. Even though that people thought for years that it was Howard and Maria Stark. Not whoever this woman is who just come completely out of nowhere. I don't blame Bendis for creating this character who is Tony Stark's biological mother. I don't blame him for doing that. I blame Kieron Gillen for putting this nonsense dropped in his lap. Now, from what I've heard from an article prior to Brian Michael Bendis taking over the Iron Man book, that he actually, this was a book that people have been asking him to do for years. Yeah, fans have been asking him to do this. I'm sure people at Marvel have been asking him to do this. Like, okay, fine, I'll do Iron Man. And he does it really well. Yeah, where he writes Iron Man to be good, awesome, and probably one of Iron Man's probably is right now probably one of Marvel's highest selling titles. Even though International is not as big a seller as, let's say, as Invincible Iron Man, but they're both good books. Okay? Now, Iron Man has had several spin-off series. You have his first spin-off ongoing series was Iron Man Legacy, which took place in the past. It was an 11-issue ongoing series, and the only reason why this was launched because of the frequent references to Legacy from Iron Man 2. That's the only reason why this was launched. Was this a bad title? No, it wasn't. It was actually a pretty good title. As a matter of fact, they even had the Illuminati show up for to take on the storyline. But it was a really interesting series, and I thought and people think the International Iron Man is the first spin-off ongoing series of Iron Man. Nope, it is not. It is not the first spin-off, it's the second one. Now, but what are the other spin-off books of Iron Man? You have the War Machine book, which lasted for a couple years in the 90s. That was launched. Of course, you also got the Force Works book that lasted for a couple years, which was launched around the same time Iron Man. Basically, it was not long after after the War Machine was launched, they launched Force Works. Then you got U.S. War Machine and U.S. War Machine 2.0. Well, U.S. War Machine was a 12-issue maxi series and U.S. War Machine 2.0 3-issue miniseries, published under the Max imprint. And this is the closest you can get to Iron Man in a Max comic book. That's simply the way it is. The other books Iron Man's had over the years, there were miniseries. You have Iron Man: The Golden Age, of course, the Iron Man / Captain America Annual Cap in 1999. The Bad Blood miniseries, which was done by Dave Michelinie and Bob Layton, which killed off Justin Hammer, probably one of the most high-profile villains of the Iron Man comic book during their run. You have also Ultimate Iron Man, which is the ultimate version of Iron Man, basically his backstory. There's Iron Man House, which is another non-canon miniseries set during House M. Iron Man: The Inevitable, Iron Man Hyperbossity, Iron Man Into the Manager, which had this gorgeous looking covers. I mean, if you see the covers, it looks like they're heavily inspired by the Rocketeer covers. Yeah. If you read the series, and it's really good, by the way, it looks like the covers are very much this. It's like they're a nod to the Rocketeer. Yeah. It could be the same artist. I don't know. It's a nod to pulp covers. You also have Ultimate Human, Ultimate Iron Man 2, which is set in the Ultimate Universe. Legacy of Doom, which was the according to Bob Layton, and I spoke to him at this past Comic-Con, the Legacy of Doom miniseries was the last piece of work Bob Layton did for Marvel, and that was 8 years ago. Yeah, that's simply what the Legacy of Doom series is. It was his last miniseries he did for Marvel. Sad to say. Viva Las Vegas is another book that's not canon, per se, in the regular 616 universe. It's actually set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's simply where it's set. Ultimate Comics Armored Wars, another book set in the Ultimate Universe, is set after Ultimate. It's basically what happened with Iron Man after Ultimatum. That's simply what the whole point of this series is. And you have Iron Man vs. Whiplash, which introduced a new version of Whiplash, which instead of questioning, like, instead of answering the question, does this comic take place in the continuity of 616, because it introduces a version of Whiplash that was introduced in Iron Man 2. Instead of answering the question, basically, he was put into Secret Avengers as part of the Masters of Evil. It's an okay miniseries. They have Iron Man Noir, which is Scott Snyder's only known published work for Marvel. I'm not kidding. And it's also another series that's not set in 616 universe. Then you have the one-shot Rescue, Iron Man Titanium, which features Titanium Man, Iron Man The Rapture, and finally, Ultimate Comics Iron Man, which is the last miniseries for the Ultimate version of Iron Man. Yeah. And currently the book is being relaunched #1 again for the 7th time in the book's history. Brian Michael Bendis is still the writer, and then International Iron Man was relaunched with Infamous Iron Man, and that one has Dr. Doom. Infamous Iron Man has a new character called Ironheart, who is the starring character of the series, until she gets her own spin-off book. Yeah. I should point out there was also a book called Iron Patriot, which featured, there are a few spin-off books. There's Iron Man 2.0, which featured Rhodey. Still as War Machine, but with a slimmed-down version of his classic War Machine outfit because his original was destroyed. And they gave him a new outfit where he has a cloaking ability, which apparently gives him headaches. Yeah. And then you have the Iron Patriot series. A series that lasted 5 issues, and then it disappeared for no explained reason. I mean, there was no notice the book was canceled. It just ended after only 5 issues. Now, my friend Hank agrees with me on this when it comes to this particular series, that, well, the series written by Alexis Knott, who also did Secret Avengers Volume 3, and he also did Bucky Barnes Winter Soldier. And when you read the series, it kind of feels like a ripoff of Steel from DC Comics. Because they throw in, like, his niece, who I think is still around, if I'm not mistaken, but they haven't done much with War Machine in years. prior to this. I mean, here's the odd thing about War Machine in the past, let's say the past 4 years. Since Invincible Iron Man ended, the character has done very, very little since the series ended. I mean, he barely showed. I mean, he hardly showed up in Iron Man up until like the second arc of Bendis' run for Invincible Iron Man. Yeah, first time in 3 years he showed up in that damn book, and then you have it where he shows up. He showed up occasionally in Captain Marvel, and then he showed up in the Avengers. It's like prior to Bendis killing him off in Civil War 2. Marvel barely did anything with War Machine to begin with. It's like, okay, maybe this character's not going to sell a character. Either that or the writers want nothing to do with War Machine at all. That's a big complaint when it comes to War Machine, is that they did nothing with the character. Almost nothing. Okay, let's have him basically in relation with Carol Danvers for no explained reason. Yeah, that came completely out of nowhere. Basically, up until his death, the guy very rarely appeared in comic books, and his appearances were very rare. It's like they were embarrassed by War Machine after 2012. That's what kind of feels like to me. And the only reason why they changed him to Iron Patriot, because that's what his name was in Iron Man 3. That's the only reason why. And by the way, the explanation in the film of why he changed his name to Iron Patriot is really stupid. Yeah, apparently it's too militaristic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the name War Machine. Heck, it's even written in the film that even Rhodey doesn't like the fact he's called Iron Patriot. Heck, get this. His password for his suit is War Machine Rocks 99. It is so funny. War Machine Rocks, all caps. And I'm thinking, oh, that's his password? Really? It is so funny that was his password for his suit. But that's all I gotta say for the Iron Man comics. I will leave in the comments below, in the description below, of all the playlists that my friend Edgar has done for the Iron Man character. Basically, all 7 volumes, including International Iron Man, Infamous Iron Man, and any Iron Man related books that he has done. I will leave it in the description below, so you can check out. And the only one that's actually he's done a lot of so far is just the stuff for Iron Man Volume 1 with the original 332 issues, and of course Iron Man Volume 2. He's doing a little bit more of Iron Man Volume 4. Okay? But yeah, this video is getting long and I need to wrap it up. Okay? So that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for next episode, which I will talk about the Transformers comics in the next episode. Okay? So until then, I will see you there. Bye.